Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone is good. It's certainly good to be back. I mean, it's not good to be back in the UK. God, anyone that lives here knows that. But it is good at least to be back talking live on a Tuesday evening, discussing all things crypto. Hope I'd say everyone is good. Hope everyone can hear me. And what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, I think the main chunk of what we're going to try and discuss is good old REKTEMBER, something that I talk about every year, something that everybody ultimately talks about every year. September, notoriously not a great month for cryptocurrency, but I actually want to delve into how bad is it really? Is it just 30 days of doom and gloom? Or is there actually some way we can spin this for a bit of hope there? And I think there is. I think there's a reason that we can be a little bit hopeful for what may come. So we're going to have a look at that. I'm not really here to talk about any news. Obviously, I just got back in the UK. Didn't see any much news. There was rumours that Trump was dead. He's now spoken live at a conference that boiled that one down. And as I've already alluded to, you know, if you're living in the UK at the moment, it's not exactly a great time. Economy's in the pan. And yeah, that could be an interesting, I don't know, grey swan event on the horizon, which, you know, may come into effect late October time. We'll have to wait and see. But with all that said, I think we'll just jump straight into some charts, shall we? And standard 4 charts that we see. Bitcoin at the moment down at around about 110,000. It's kind of straddling this central white line, and we're kind of working in and around sort of the previous ranging pattern dating back to May. We have broken below it. We technically closed the boat, but we haven't really had a clear breakdown of that at the moment. But you can see that, you know, pretty much since I've been away, this yellow diagonal line, it has been broken, and we've just continued to move back down. I appreciate some people are talking about a double top M formation pattern. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Yes, there will be there, but I don't think there's anything right now in the big picture that we actually need to worry about. And if you really look at it, we're kind of just retesting that previous top of the range pattern, something we've done in every other range previously in this bull run. And yeah, okay, we're right at the top of that, or the bottom of our current price top of the previous range. And so, you know, things could change rather quickly. But I don't think anything to panic about just yet. In terms of Bitcoin dominance, that has continued to fall over the last couple of weeks since I saw you. We are seeing a little bit of a pullback at the moment. There's no actual conviction within that pullback just yet. I wouldn't necessarily that there is a change in that trend, although just watch out for it, and we'll explore this a little bit later on with Bitcoin dominance and the significance that the month of September has with those. Total 2, you know, we had that strong move up. We kind of got into that almost $1.7 trillion. What we've actually done is we've come back down into the range. If I just, you know, indulge me and take me on to kind of a lower time frame just on this, and you can actually see, similar to sort of what Bitcoin was doing, I'll get rid of these other lines just temporarily. We've actually just come back down on total 2, and we're pretty much just resting on where we were at the back end last month when, you know, Ethereum started, not last month, sorry, 2 months ago, July now, started that move up, which helped sort of create that move towards $1.5 trillion. So another pullback there. Again, people talking about potential double top on altcoins at the moment. Yes, it could well be, but we're right on that neckline. No decision should really be made on a neckline. Wait for confirmation one way or another. And then we've got BitTensor. Now, BitTensor just hasn't been good, and people have asked for some TA, and we always do it anyway later on. We can ignore the white lines. I'm not going to get rid of them, but, you know, it's not where we're rolling at the moment. These yellow sort of sloping lines, what we can actually see is we are now at the bottom of this pattern. And again, you know, 315, 320, I've talked about that Gandalf line for long enough. Now, that is where the Gandalf line is. That is where the 800 EMA is on the daily. We'll see both of those later on. And again, though, we've been in this pattern for pretty much the last 6 months. There was a time when we dipped below it, so it's not infallible. But, you know, based on past performance, this trend line has held for the last 3 or 4 months. It may not bounce straight off it. We've seen periods where we stayed for a couple of weeks on this trend line, but we just need to watch it here. If you're not in a position where you have sidestepped already, then I think, throwing it out right now without confirmation from something else may well look like a rash move. Might as well wait for that confirmation, see if we do properly lose the Gandalf line, this 800 EMA, and also the bottom of this trend line, and then we can have a look at whether or not we want to sidestep and what that ultimately might lead to. But we'll go into some more detail on that later on. Let's have a look at Bitcoin on the 12-hour, looking at the usual things here with the liquidation heat maps. Now, we've come back down and we've actually started to talk about some fib levels again, which we haven't really talked about for what feels like 2 or 3 months. And we're back on the 2, I was going to say the 0.2, the 2 fib level, all the way back from March 24. You've seen me draw that enough times at the moment. We've come back and we've retested it. We've kind of find ourselves in a position that we've been at many times before, which is straddling, which is where we're stuck in between 2 liquidation heat zones. Now, this one has actually only recently formed here. So it's fairly new. It's not as bright as the one down at 105. Now, we're not talking about the 105 for quite some time because there's been other ones in the way. But the reality of it is that actually that 105 to 102.7 region is now in play. It's one that could, it's the next target that could be taken to the downside. What have we got to the upside? Well, I think that $1,000 zone that building up to 1.14, sorry, just at 1 point, I don't even say 1 point, 114.4 to 113.4 up there. And we've had a decent amount falling at the moment. And we are seeing a slight rise up. And given that this is quite new, we could actually see that move all the way up to take that one back down. I think putting aside the fear that surrounded REKTEMBER, that would probably be where I would most likely suggest that we're heading towards, which now that I've said that to you guys means we are going a little bit further south, and I apologize in advance for that. But that's probably where I'd be looking. 118 to 115, there's a bit of an ask to get up there, immediately. We're going to need some really positive news to potentially do that. There is some stuff later on in the month that might help that towards. But we've talked over a number of Friday sessions about, it was 104 at the time, being a level that may be of some interest, tying with EMAs and fib levels when we look at those, and vector candles we'll look at those a little bit later. So there's still some element down there, but my argument is we'll see it on, I think it's the next chart. When I find it. No, not that one, I don't think. What am I? It was that one, apologies. Hide that one then. Oh, that's not right. That isn't right, that's a 20. There we go. Bit rusty here. As long as we stay above the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame, then I don't think there's anything for us to really suggest that actually we've got to make some drastic changes. We're still within the 4-year cycle, although 4-year cycle potentially seeing a top in the next 3 months or so. We're still making higher highs and higher lows. We're still above the 50 EMA. And so any sort of pullback is just ultimately noise. And that's something that we've got to bear in mind. And I'm solely talking about Bitcoin here because, altcoins have been a little bit hit and miss. But there's nothing really that says to me, right, I've got to completely change my outlook on where things are going. Actually, I'm quite content looking at a chart like this on the weekly time frames to say, actually, things are still moving as we would expect them to do. And the other thing to just bear in mind is, previous bull runs, whether it be sort of December 2020 through to April 2021, or indeed 2017, these sharp moves up. We actually haven't seen a sharp move up on Bitcoin this cycle yet. I know we have moved from 15,000 to 125,000, whatever high we ultimately got to, but there hasn't been a sharp move up. It's been a lot of consolidating at each of those, and that step change that we've seen to sort of drive that FOMO and that peak euphoria hasn't really been there yet. Slow and steady is winning the race. It's boring a lot of people. It's certainly boring retail into not even getting involved in it. And so, without that peak euphoria, then we potentially still have some time to move in and around those. I didn't mention before, some people have asked for some charting, which I will do, but if you've got any other questions please feel free to drop them in there. I didn't get any on the spreadsheet this week, so nothing really to go through on there. We'll come back to Bitcoin. We'll come back to some more charting and T8 in a moment. Let's just get into the old meat and potatoes, as they say, of why everyone is so fearful of September. REKTEMBER, as it is known. Now, August on record, the worst month of the calendar. 9 red months out of the last 13, but September's a close second on 8. And it hasn't really been that good. And I think the whole point behind REKTEMBER is kind of August and September are almost a package. There's never been, you can see here on the screen, there's never been both months green in the history of Bitcoin, certainly in the history you can see here back to 2013. So always been one of them that has been red, and often enough there's actually been both that have been red. And even when September has been green, actually we've never seen it in double digits. We've seen it in sort of mid to low single figures. The occasional one, 7.29, the highest it's been. So never really seen major elements of returns there. And it's all that selling may go away kind of mentality. Now people are starting to get back in from the holidays. There may be some further sort of panic sales they want to do, but people are kind of eyeing up October, which is the best month, as that return to pace. Could we just talk about August just quickly for a second, because we did close yesterday, and I sort of mentioned the past couple of streams that in bull years, so the blow off years 2013, 2017, 2021, August was a green month. Well, it wasn't this, so we have to kind of say to ourselves, well, okay, we only had 3 data points of that beforehand. August has now come in and kind of blown that out the way. It doesn't mean that the narrative has suddenly changed, but we kind of have to just backtrack on ourselves and say, well, we can't really use that as an example anymore, and we just actually rely back to the medium of August is a pretty bad month. But even that being said, it was only a 6% drop, and I say only a 6% drop. You look at the percentages that we've achieved, plus and minus throughout the year: 9, minus 17, 2, plus 14, plus 10, plus 2, plus 8, minus 6. Not exactly a huge correction like we've seen sort of March into April of this year. So let's just digest September's if we can. And I just want to start off the bat. September, yeah, okay, historically second worst month there is out there. But actually, I kind of believe that September is the turnaround month. September, historically, yes, we have seen some lows form within those years, but actually it's normally the point that a low is formed on that next leg up. And I just want to draw your attention to some previous ones. So what we got here is a sort of a bastardized version of the 4-year time sequence that I used to talk about, but instead of having the columns, I've just put it in the line chart, just make it a little bit easier to see. Now this is going to go back as far as about 2013, so we'll just see how many times there is. But just bear in mind, I'm going to try and highlight this best I can. So we're in a September at the moment, so we need to go back the previous year. So just have a look. We had 2024 ranging, descending range, but pretty much ranging from March through to September the 1st. So we are on the monthly time frame here. And look, we actually this time formed the low in the August, I accept that. But September, we started that move up and that shift change in price trajectory. This is only on the monthly, so I'm not dissecting it by the days just yet. We'll have a look at those in a moment. But you can kind of see, there it is, making that move. And what I should actually have is probably make it a bit easier each time. Okay, so there we go. That's the 1st September. Look at 2023. Similar kind of story. This is the September. So we have the sort of ranging lows falling August and September, kind of a package deal. But suddenly September actually is the move up. It's the change in step. Now, where that falls down, unfortunately, is in bear market years. Now, that's kind of understandable. So we go to September here, and we did actually have a little bit, we stopped the low. I think I'm putting a little bit of stretch in to say we started something there because, okay, October looked okay, and then FTX happened, and the market just continued back down. So doesn't work in the bear market years as we see, but it's a bear market, kind of understandable there. Have a look in the blow off top bull market year. So we had August falling into September. September starts that final run going up. We have a look in the year prior to that, 2020. Look again. This is September. So we had August falling into it, September starting Bitcoin's move from 10,000 to, well, ultimately ended up at 64,000. We then go into 2019, September, moves up, does actually ultimately fall away. So, okay, maybe another outlier there. We've got this one in 2018, which is the bear market year. There it is, and it falls away. Go into 2017, for any of you that were in the markets back then, this is it. That's the month. So, making sure my camera's not in the way. I mean, yes, I know we were moving up. August pulled back, formed the low for the next move back up. I mean, you can see where we're going with this. August here, September's this one, 2016, on that move back up. September's here. So August was a green month, that one, but it's pretty flat. Starts that move back up. You get the point. I mean, the red one is there. So actually, September, it's just something that we have to ultimately endure. But unless we're in a bear market year, September forms a low of some point, and then we build from that one. So yes, okay, some people might get a bit nervous about price action, especially because August was red. Feels like everything's going in the wrong direction. But as we've just seen historically, everything kind of still looks like it's working out. And I've kind of taken this down onto the weekly time frame, and maybe we don't need to run over it too much to illustrate the point, but just as it currently sits at the moment, these square boxes, they're actually sometimes 5 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. I want to try and move the left and right lines away from the actual months. You can kind of see where the price action is, but what I've tried to do is sort of mark the low. You can kind of see in September 23, so if we came off, we marked the low on Monday the 11th, 2023, then we start that move up. So from a weekly time frame, we can start to actually see this a little bit better. Similarly, August comes in, and then September, we come down, we mark that low, building up that momentum for 2021, taking us into the blow off top in November. There, we're moving in on 2020. So this one, September, the first week looked pretty bad. It was actually the second week, which marks the low, and then managed to build it through. Now, we didn't actually clear the opening price of the month of September, but you can see we formed that low before we then made that move up. We move into 2019. This was was an outlier in terms of it formed a low. We had a weak rally into October, which I suppose provided some relief, but ultimately it continued to fall back down and through. 2018 bear market year, you can kind of see we still formed the low, but this one ranged before we collapsed. Now we can start to see 2017. There are some strong pullbacks, and some of these they are strong pullbacks in terms of percentages over the month, but ultimately still come back through. And this one's another one in which, okay, the closing price of September was technically ever so slightly lower than the opening price, but look at the recovery and the strength of that recovery, the bottom forming down here before that strong move all the way up from basically 3,000 to 20,000. Kind of get the picture. I mean, obviously I'm on the logarithmic and some of these may be flat, but you can kind of see still having strong moves from each of them. So it is something that I personally feel that we, us, have to ultimately endure. And I think September has just garnered this reputation of it is a red month, but actually it's not necessarily a red month for a significant period of time. And this is sort of where we get to this bit, because I was sort of, well, whilst we're doing it then, hopefully on my little screen that not all the yellow lines pop up. Hopefully they are still there. They are there, still there. That's fine. Well, how many days does it take on average for us to find that bottom? So what I've effectively gone and done, I'll zoom in a second, but I've gone back 10 years. I think that's more than enough. The yellow lines are marking the first of the month, and then I've effectively just drawn a date line to just work out how long it took to actually get to the base of each, lowest price of each September. So in 2024, it took 5 days. It took 10 days in 2023. It took 20 days to get down here in 2022, 20 days again in 2021. We had 7 days in 2020. The full month actually in, what year am I in here? 2019. So 29 days of it. 8 days in 2018. 14 days in 2017. Only 1 day. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even 1 day. It was 0 days. The first day, 1st of September in 2016 was the lowest, and we built from there. And in 2015, it took 15 days. Okay, why have I bothered to just go through all those? I'm trying to work out how long, on average, we have to endure it. So I've done 10 years. It's 30 days in September. That makes 300 days. You add all of those together, and it's 126, I believe. So on average, we really are. I mean, I know it's not exactly scientific, but on average, we're ultimately having to wait till about 12 days. So almost the first 2 weeks. That's where the most pain is felt in September, which kind of makes a bit of sense. We kind of have that rollover from August as the worst month into September, but by the back end of September, normality is resumed. Maybe not normality, but hopium, or whatever you want to call it, has resumed, and we then start to see that move up. And as I said, outside of a bear market, we actually see that September is the start of the next moves up, however high or however long they ultimately tend to go for. So, just going back to REKTEMBER and how long or how bad is it really for Bitcoin? I would say it's actually it's a turning point, and because we've already had to sit through August, which I say it's pretty bad. July not exactly great for Bitcoin. Then September's the time that we come out of hibernation. Yeah, okay, we're groggy and we've taken a bit of a beating, but we soon find our stride again. And if you think about 2017, 2021, that big move, maybe not with Bitcoin, but certainly with altcoins, was coming October, November, December. We were a bit sluggish in the month of September. So that's kind of where I see it. And it's not ultimately just Bitcoin that I'm talking about there. Because if we have a look now at Bitcoin dominance, kind of similar thing. I might change this sort of chart, but Bitcoin dominance over the last few weeks has been taking a bit of a kicking. But interestingly enough, September's historically have been a time in which we have seen a return or an increase in Bitcoin dominance, where investors have either decided to take profits from any movements that they have made in the altcoin market over the summer, or that just investors are coming in and being a bit more serious about their Bitcoin acquisition. So again, we can go through this. September 2024, Bitcoin dominance goes up. I mean, it was going up, but it does still continue to go up, and then it corrects October to November on the Trump election. We go into 2023, September, we see Bitcoin dominance climbing back up. 2022, September, bear market, okay, goes down, but it's in its bottom. 2021, September, makes that move up. 2020, that's August, this is September, have that strong move up. You're kind of getting where I'm going with this. 2019, flat, okay, we had one way it was flat. 2018, should have drawn these lines a bit better. September, moving back up. So what we can actually see with September is Bitcoin seems to have its turning around point, but so does Bitcoin dominance. Now, ultimately, what that generally means is that altcoins are not doing as well. I'm not saying that altcoin prices necessarily go down, because as we know, Bitcoin dominance can continue to climb with altcoin prices climbing. It just means the percentage gain for Bitcoin is greater. But historically, that hasn't actually really been the case. When you look at the data, particularly with Ethereum versus BTC, what you actually see is that altcoins do take that breather, and altcoins do start to sort of see that pullback. It doesn't always last long, and that's kind of makes a bit of sense whether we talk about last year or we talk about peak market years. the final 3 months, October, November, December, whether it's the Halloween or the Santa rally, we start to see people get more excited about altcoins, particularly if we are in that blow-off year, and we can really see those big gains. But it just goes to show that actually what we might see this month is Bitcoin finding its feet again, making that move up, but also outpacing the rest of the markets. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to clear 66. I know I talked about, we were looking at, I think I did it on a different chart. Yeah. Previously, we were looking all the way up here at sort of 71, trying to get back to there. And I'm not ruling it out, and I'm not saying that it's a straight line to there either. I'm just saying that's ultimately where we are looking. But we might start to see that move up, back up, maybe a re-challenge of the previous high. And I put this to the side because I wanted to just draw it. And if we just have a look at a fib level, and we draw it from the previous top to bottom, and we pull it out to the side. I mean, what's the fib level I love the most? 618. We can actually kind of see that we've come up here and we've bounced quite nicely off that at the moment, right at the end of August, right at the beginning of September, maybe to give us that opportunity for that September rise in Bitcoin dominance. So just bear that in mind for the altcoins that you may be holding in terms of what's the better play. Now, I didn't get around to selling BTC into Ethereum. I've been away for the last 2 weeks and I didn't have my Trezor on me. So maybe I'm just looking at that as an opportunity for me to, not have missed out. We'll just have to ultimately wait and see. But the fact of the matter is, historically, September has played that. We've also now got a fib level, which is kind of tying in. These fib levels, they're not exact. I get that, but you can kind of see there's interaction in and around these each time. I don't know if maybe doing it on the logarithmic, no, it doesn't make it much better, to be honest. Sorry, it's on the logarithmic now. Maybe do body to body, see if that sort of tidies it up any better. Not really. So I think I'll stick with where we were. But yeah, I think there's at least something to ultimately consider there, and just to sort of put that in the back burner of, okay, maybe that's where we need to go. Hey there, Bijan. I'm just checking. Altcoins take a breather. Seems like they're fighting lung cancer at the moment. Yeah, some altcoins are. I mean, there are some that have done well, which we will have a look at. And yeah, I'll come back to that in a moment. But I do feel like the last couple of days, sentiment has really sort of fallen off a cliff, and it amazes me really when you look at it. Fear and greed. Okay, it's at 49 now. Yesterday it was at 46, and last week it was at 48. I think at the one stance. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's 39. I was going to say, I'm sure not so long ago it was down in the 30s. 39 on the fear and greed this time in a 4-year cycle in a bull market. It doesn't make any sense. Look at this. Just look at what we're seeing on this chart. Okay, it's a weekly time frame again for Bitcoin. But what is, there's nothing necessarily wrong with this. So just move this out of the way a moment. We're still above the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame. Obviously, it's something we're looking at. We're actually back on the 20 EMA on the weekly time frame. Okay, it doesn't necessarily always hold, but more times than not, it actually does hold quite well, and we can bounce off that. So we've just corrected back to something that we've hit more often than not. But then I throw this on here, and okay, you could argue there's some license in there because it doesn't quite touch down here, and these ones don't quite touch there. But near as damn, that's a pretty decent trend line that we have just been building up and climbing from there. And so I don't know what the understanding behind fear getting all the way down into the 40s a couple of days ago, when actually we're still 6-figure Bitcoin. We're still seeing institutional investment within Bitcoin. TA wise on the higher time frames, we are having a correction, pullback. We haven't broken any major trend lines. We haven't lost any major EMAs. That doesn't really seem like there is any real reason behind that level of fear. And it wasn't that long ago. It was just before I went away when the entire world was celebrating the fact that Jerome Powell said some rumor about we were going to have rate cuts. Well, the rate cuts are coming, apparently, 92% almost in 14, 13, 15 days time, we're going to see that rate cut. And now, you ask Joe Blogs on crypto Twitter, and that is the password for Valhalla, we will actually moonshot from it. I'm sure there will be a positive reaction to an initial rate cut, just because we've had such a long period, sort of 6 months or so of, maybe even longer actually, 7 months of no rate cuts. But you know my take on the rate cuts. We need rate cuts to move a lot further down and then stop, and the money print to turn on before we can really start, in my opinion, thinking that that's going to be a positive thing. But that's not how the rest of crypto Twitter is thinking on this. That's not how sentiment is. So if we do get a rate cut, I imagine we will get that spike. And if this is to be believed, if Jerome Powell is to be believed, then this is second half of September. So maybe we've just got a little bit of bleeding into it. Sell the news, sell the rumor, buy the news event, whatever. And then we're going to see that second half of September kickstart in to make October, November, and hopefully December, if we can get that far along, a much more enjoyable experience for those that are holding altcoins. Now, we do have CPI next month, next week even, which maybe might be a fly in the ointment. We'll have to ultimately wait and see. But, just to confirm, the week after, Wednesday the 17th, 7 o'clock, FOMC. And that is what a lot of people are looking for. Now, interestingly, it's the same day as the UK can do their CPI. Looks like inflation's pretty much on the rise for the UK at the moment. I know nobody wants to invest in the UK at the moment, as their bonds and all that are just sort of climbing. I think there's even talk about it getting to 6% anytime soon, but we'll leave that there because we don't normally cover the UK. But that could just be an interesting, yin and yang, because as I say, for the UK, end of October, we've got the budget, and we kind of know that we're going to get a jolly good spanking in that budget. And I got a feeling the markets are definitely not going to react well. So there's no clear way for us to spin that. So that's an October thing, which, October leading into November, are we talking about a potential blow off top? I don't necessarily think that the UK budget is enough to disrupt the crypto world, but I think it's something that we just have to put in our calendars to have a look and try and understand where we think that one's going. But to try and just summarize what I've just talked about for the last 17 minutes or so, yes, we are in September. Yes, it is generally a red month, but it seems to be more a month of two halves. First couple of weeks, not particularly pleasant, but actually we really start to see Bitcoin pick its legs back up, back end of September, giving it strength to move through to October and the Halloween and Santa rally. So, if you've got this far, you're 3 years and 3 3/4 years into this 4-year cycle, now is not the time to just panic. You've been through this, you've done the worst, you position yourself where it is, you've got whatever plan it is that you're wanting to work towards, give September a chance, okay? If you see an opportunity for a trade or whatever, absolutely go for it. But I don't think it's now is the time to start thinking, I've got to start selling, I've got to start reducing it. And look, if we start losing some key levels, then I will happily come on here and tell you a different story. But right now, with what we're seeing, I don't think that is where we need to be. In terms of, they hit fear and greed on that's what I had it. Fear and greed on the coin market cap is at 39, which is interesting. There's actually quite a varied difference between these two. But yeah, just something to note and to bear in mind. And we haven't even talked about on-chain analytics in terms of other previous indicators that have helped sort of determine whether or not we're at peak. The markets were closed yesterday, so there's no real inflow data that we can take on the ETFs. We have seen that last week at least. Can you tell I've been into my running? Because every bloody advert at the moment just seems to be trainers. So okay, some big sell-offs from BlackRock, but we've had 5 or 6 days of buying this back. Tomorrow we'll find out how today went. But everything just looking okay there. Right, let me just try and clear up some of these in case anyone's been saying anything. Yeah, done the altcoins, done the breather. BTC, S&P, Russell's making higher highs and higher than their supports. None of those are broken. Yeah, I agree with that. Higher, continual higher highs. So there will be times that to move back down. I know BJ, I've talked about Total 3 getting wrecked by ETH, but and I agree with you, it has. We have that chart, I think. Yeah, this is it. And yeah, since April it has, but he finally woke up, and it has made a new all-time high. It's not stuck that landing yet, but ultimately it's there. But there are select success stories for the altcoin market. XRP, love it or hate it. Beginning of this cycle, it was under $1, and we've had $3.60 or whatever it has been, pulled back slightly. Solana, $8, at 200 at the moment, over 300 beforehand. BNB, 860, I think I saw, down at less than 200 at the start of the cycle. So there are altcoins that have done well, but generally the altcoin market, I agree, has struggled. But let's actually have a look at some other TA. We'll start with Bitcoin, daily time frame, with everything else there. So what we've seen with Bitcoin, it lost its 50 EMA. We've lost the 10 and the 20 as well. We didn't quite come down and correct to the 200 EMA, but we did finally totally close off this vector candle, which was 108,900. We did that a couple of days ago. And what we're kind of seeing is from a base from that starting to build back up. But even right now as we speak, 10 EMA is holding us back, and it has held us back for the last week and a half, 2 weeks since we lost that 50 EMA. So, a logical level for us to pull back to. Maybe we might ultimately see some further falling. And this is what people have been talking about and sort of mentioning to me is that an M formation? And are we now just having a look on the way back down? And I could suggest that there is probably a double top pattern there where you get the range counts from 1, maybe consolidation, 2, consolidation, 3. I can see that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to now lose all of this on the way back down. We don't have to give that back. We just would typically look for 3 counts. We've come back down here. I'd say that this is one continuous move at the moment. If that is it, we haven't really seen an area of consolidation yet. I'd like to either see a further sharp pullback up or a lengthier sideways action for that to be a consolidation period. But I can't ignore that on there. But as I said at the beginning, all we've really done is delete the wrong indicator. Is come back and retest the range that we were experiencing through May and June. And so now we're starting to see 200 EMA. That's that 104 level that we were talking about. And you can kind of see that what was 104.7. I had up the previous one at 105,000 for the liquidation areas. But we can now see this next vector candle that is in play is down at 104,300, which ultimately is at the 200 EMA. And given that we're actually only in the second day of September, I'm not ruling out that there is further falling that could happen, in the next week or so. I mean, hell, we've got a cuddle on Saturday, and cuddle seems to have some wild actions. Now, the last few for Tau have been pretty good, probably because we've talked about it, just brought it up. But, we do see some good movements historically at cuddles. It's odd how that happens. But yeah, move down there. Don't worry if it happens. It can happen. This would be an area of interest for me. It has to be, unfortunately, because we are in a downtrend right now, and there's an EMA there which is tying in for us. And I haven't done it, but I bet if I throw fib level, it's pretty close, isn't it? 382, 103,000, we're talking about 104. I think that's worth at least just circling off or having that vector zone there as an area to just think, we might end up back there. Okay, let's get rid of that. And then let's go down onto the 4-hour time frame, see if there's anything for us here. And again, we're just in a steady downtrend with the 4-hour time frame. We're coming back up, hitting the 50 EMA at the moment. Historically, we've broken from that. Now, what is interesting is that the 800 side, zoom in on this, the 800 has actually been holding us up a little bit. You could argue some sort of bottoming pattern there, making that move up, but I need to see us really clear that. The one thing I would say is at least we have a vector candle up here. We know we like to clear vector candles when we get on these lower time frames. So that move back up to sort of 114,000, which lo and behold would take out this liquidation level here, or distribution of liquidations. Then yeah, that could certainly be something we'd look at. Maybe it just spikes through the 200 EMA like what we saw here, but then doesn't have enough to come back down. I think there's that on the cards, but you know, there is a bottoming pattern here. So what do I want to see from a positive point of view? I want to see 4-hour candles stay above this level here. That's what I want to see. And then I want to see it take out that high there, take out that EMA, attack this, and then build up from it. I mean, hey, sounds so easy when you say it like that, but that's what I'm looking for it to try and sort of, from the positive side of that, you know, the negative side, ultimately the 50 EMA doesn't hold now, or we just get that move up there, but it is a failed rally, and we come back down and we have a look at this vector zone. Ultimately, 104. I'm not even worried if we get to the 104 though. You know, in part of me thinks maybe that happens. You know, September, we're day 2 into it. We're going to expect a bloody nose in September, but it's also the round that we stand back up. So that's where I am with that one. I'm not going to bother going down the 1 hour with that. I'm going to get into talking about Tau. This is the issue, isn't it? Here we are back with Gandalf. And we've lost Gandalf. Well, we haven't personally lost him, he's there. But the level he was standing, we have technically lost it. We have actually lost the 800 EMA on the daily time frame as well. And at the moment, kind of looking like we're forming a little bit of a Kobo from that one. Now, I don't particularly think the Tau price action looks great. Maybe it's being suppressed by whales buying it, and we will see a knee-jerk reaction from it. Great, I still hold Tau, so if that happens, perfect. But if you look at it just from, you didn't know anything about it and you just looked at this, it doesn't look great. I mean, we haven't made a higher high this year. You know, last time we made a higher high was this high here on the 7th of December. After that, nope. It's just falling. It's just falling. Now we have seen a fight back ultimately at this level, but it isn't something for me which I'm sort of saying, yeah, this is it. This is where it's going to move. And I understand that it's our baby and alphas and all of that, and I'm just not bothered about the fundamentals of it. I'm not bothered about, you know, S&P or Fortune 500 companies investing in it or doing a strategic Tau reserve or whatever. Just looking at the chart there, and everything that I see, losing EMAs, losing key support, you know, all the EMAs are sloping down and stacked against us. I don't really see anything to particularly get too excited about there. And then we might have a whopping double top right on the neckline. Now, you know, would you sell it at this level? No, of course you wouldn't. We've got an 800 EMA, and we've also got a neckline there. You know, it could easily bounce. We've seen here, we're at this level down here. Could easily bounce from there. We now have to wait for confirmation. But if we do lose it, I mean, okay. Technically, because I don't have the shaded areas for the wicks, there's a wick there at 290, let's call it, that hasn't been taken out yet. But if we do lose that, I mean, you're talking 220, aren't you? We're talking. There wasn't much. There's not much down here. You know, there's like 240 maybe, and 220. We get into these zones here. Something to certainly look at. So that's the downside of it. But if we do bounce from here, well, actually, in the last 4 months, 5 months, where we've been at this level, we have at least been able to get back into the 400s and the 450s kind of level. So if we see a good bounce from here, maybe that's it. And I've got this red line right here, which kind of just says, fail to clear that, and I'm selling. I'm going to put an amber line on right now. I think I have to. Horizontal line there. Let's just change the color. Let's get it dotted. And I'm kind of thinking if we don't clear this high at 390, so let's just say we don't clear 400. I think I'm gonna have to sell. I don't know how much I'm gonna sell, but I think I kind of have to. Whatever move up we have, and we don't live in an infinite down. Okay, we always see pullbacks, and we always see pullbacks when we're going up as well. But the next move up that it happens, if we can't get above these EMAs and we can't clear that level, I have to question what is the logical reason in holding Tau. There are better assets out there, and I'd look to sidestep. I'd look to sell. How much I do it, I'm not too sure, because I could sell and then it does make that move up. It's tough having that there, but I think we've got to be realistic with, it's not really the next lower high, if I'm honest, on the daily time frame, on the scale that we've shown there, because this is, we needed that lower low to form, and we had the low here, we made a high, we come back down, it was a higher low, but then we failed to make the higher high. So we're kind of just in this weird, there's no real clear direction in the sort of medium term, 4 to 6 months, as to where the trend is going. We're just kind of ranging. But if I take it on the short time frame, the last sort of I don't know, 8 weeks or so, then this has to be there. We have to clear it. We have to clear that. And if we can't, and we just got to accept that the data right there is saying that we're showing weakness right now. And, that on top of this bigger picture is showing just, continual weakness. Now I'm hoping that Saturday proves me wrong and we have that move. And I'll be delighted ultimately if that happens, because I haven't sold anything since that last move. So that's currently where my thoughts are. If we go down the 4 hour time frame, I don't think there's anything really different to suggest that there. And the other thing I would say, and I think Bijan put it in Discord, when you look at things then like RSIs, stochastics and all that, we are in quite a lot of oversold territory on that, even on the higher time frame. So, back to Bitcoin, would make sense that we'll find our footing at some stage for that move. I don't have the RSI on. I mean, I could, but I can't be bothered. But I'm assuming after, couple of weeks, months of selling, that the RSI, even on the 4 hours, is probably going to be quite low for Tau. But I'm more interested right now in just how it's interacting around that Gandalf. That Gandalf line was important. Yes, it did lose it, but it's had such a good history that was just sort of the generic level. And we are ultimately almost back at it. It's a bit like, this bit here where we dip through. Maybe we can say, this is just a dip. We just don't have enough data. It's too close to where we're at. But even on the 4 hour, the 10 and the 20 EMA have been king. We've, in the last, what's that going to be, 6, for about 10 days, 6, in the last 60 candles, we've only hit the 50 EMA once. And it's been the 20 that's battered us back down. And in the last 4 candles, the 20 EMA has knocked us back down. And each time it's knocked us below the 10 EMA, which is coming where we find ourselves right now. So, yeah, I don't want to have to be like, it just doesn't look great. But it doesn't, I can spin an argument to suggest that, yeah, there is some positivity that you could find. But we're relying on things to ultimately happen there. If we just look at what's gone on historically on short, medium or long term, it doesn't necessarily seem to be that level of interest. So there's been loads of typings from Bijan. That's not a bad thing. Camel Finance posted a wick-off schematic with Tau, and it's not a pretty picture. I'll have a look at that. Maybe that's something to talk about on Friday, but I'll have a look at that. So I assume they're in a distribution phase. Yeah, must be. Okay. I'll have a look at that. Thanks, Bijan. Tag me in Discord with it if you've got a picture of it or whatever. I'll definitely have a look. From a TA point of view, says Tim, from TA point of view, I do not understand the love for Tau, especially when compared to BTC. I mean, that's Tau BTC. Now, I'll be honest with you. I sold some of my BTC into Tau about here. So not my best move. But you're right, Tau BTC, it's not been the play. But it depends on, I suppose, ultimately what you're doing. I'm a bit more of a BTC fanatic than a lot of people in the group. But I still have, my Tau. And I probably hold on to it more longer than I should because of the group. That's probably a reality of something that I need to have a look at myself. There's a lot of talk about it, and you can kind of almost get caught up in it. But I do get your point there. Back to the 4 hours. Let's have a look at some more of these. Camel laughed when he watched the Tau chart. Okay. Maybe I'm being a Debbie Downer. In fact, both Casper and Tau have the same wick-off pattern. Okay. Dying a similar death. I think you could probably make that argument that a lot of altcoins are dying a similar death. Whether you look at Total 3 versus Ethereum, like you've mentioned, or BTC, they'll all ultimately be struggling. And, Total 3, I mean, to have Ethereum in this, it's kind of just ranging, at least with Total 2. Okay, no, it's kind of ranging too. All right, ignore that. Which chart was that on? This one. Okay, Tim, I think it's bled straight from BTC since Israel and Iran skirmish in May 2020. Constantly higher lows. I don't know if you're talking about Casper or not there, but okay. So that's kind of where I am with Tau. What I will just say, I was going to show you at the end, but I haven't shown this for ultimately for a while. Thanks to that, Bijan. This is what my current holdings are, and I have reduced some of the other. I did it back in. I wrote it down on a piece of paper here, early July. I reduced some of my other altcoin holdings. Actually, funnily enough, like Link, I reduced it when it was like $18 and it flew up to 25 or whatever. So, didn't exactly time that one right, but I was, just saw an opportunity to try and just pad out. So Tau and BTC pretty even at the moment from a personal pot point of view. I do have some USDT. I have been messing around with trading on that, obviously for the last couple of weeks whilst I've been away, but I do want to try and do that. I think there's a better opportunity while altcoins aren't doing much for me. They're near on though, Link and SPX. Link, I can't sell it all because last time I did that, I went from $8 to $25. I just feel like I'm just stubbornly going to hold that, and we will see what happens with the bull market. Ondo, kind of similar, RWA. It's not a big holding of mine, but we'll see. And Near, I've had a much bigger pot of Near. I'm just playing with a lot of profits with that one at the moment. So of that sort of like 10% just over my portfolio, I'm kind of just happy to chill and sit on it. I don't think the SPX is right. I think it's more than that. But I didn't really look too much at the data there. I kind of just like the meme play. Yes, could I have sold some when it was over $2? Of course, it's not a dollar, but given where my average buy entry is, I'm just believing in it. Just going to see how that one rides. So, that ultimately that 17% of my portfolio is just, I'm just stubbornly holding on to it now. I've kind of sold everything I need to sell with it, or need to, but feel, obliged to sell to turn into something else. And really the two battlegrounds are the BTC versus Tau balance. And now it doesn't mean I'm going to sell BTC into Tau. I think I've kind of already talked about that. Triple seesaw kind of, I kind of want to move BTC into maybe Ethereum. And I'm just trying to wait to see what happens. And maybe I'm going to be paralyzed with indecision of, I'll just wait to see if Bitcoin dominance climbs back up. Ultimately, I should have sold it when it dumped through 60%, but can't stop holidays and all of that. So it's there, but how long I hold on to this Tau for, we'll just have to wait and see. Right, going back to some charts in Conscious, it's 5 to 9. Thank you for sticking with it. SPX, someone did ask me to cover SPX, so I will. Daily time. I'll probably do most of these on the daily, just saves time. We'll get through them all. So yeah, so we've had SPX making those moves up. I mean, let's just take it. I'm just going to put this on the linear chart because the moves have been quite wild. And this looks pretty messy. Just there's so many colors on there. But when we had the tariff crash, it came all the way down to like 30 cents. We've seen, climbing up to 230, big strong moves there, but a fairly strong pullback. whether you want to call this a head and shoulders or a double top kind of pattern, there does seem to be some sort of pattern with that being the neckline there. And this is potentially playing out. The problem that you got, and we'll put it back onto this now, is that I know it seems like it's fallen far, but if this is the pattern that you're looking at, get rid of those. Wait, I don't want to delete the indicator. I know I'm ultimately going to do this. The problem that you're going to have is if this is the pattern that you're looking at, whether you double top or head and shoulders, and you go right top to neckline, we actually have still a bit of falling to go. It could get down as low as 90 cents just to clear that out there. So that's something to consider. And when we've seen these big corrections before, it's lost to 200-day EMA and not look twice about it. So right now it is just bleeding. It's just coming out and sort of just falling away. And these EMAs are pointing down aggressively. So I do see some further falling with this. Maybe I need to actually pull my finger out and have a look at that in terms of trying to see, well, maybe if there's I mean, we have a vector at 80 cents, but we're going to do this fib. We're going to have to go all the way back to March. Okay, so $1.76 and then 60 cents, let's say. So $1.75, 60 cents. They'd kind of be the levels. There is at the dollar, some previous support. Do the whole horizontal line because it actually takes in over there. I'll get rid of this now. Don't worry, I'm trying to tidy it up for you. Let's just change that back to white line and solid. You can kind of see, yep, there was support June, May, but then also back at the beginning of the year. So there is some support in and around there, tied in with the fib. Then maybe we start to see that ultimately turn around. But given it's a meme, I think we just need the whole narrative to kind of shift to just positivity. And then this moves. It moves faster than most of the other ones. Having a look at Ethereum. So Ethereum, despite everything, it's not looking bad. We haven't even retested the 50 EMA. Remember on the daily of the Bitcoin, we're well below the 50 EMA. This just moves so hard, so fast that we haven't got there. And now the 50 EMA is at 4,000. We're still waiting really for that correction back to 4,000 on the previous cycle highs of just under 4,000 there. So yeah, okay, we lost the 10 and the 20. Logical analysis would suggest that maybe we come back to that 50 EMA, but a retest of the 50 EMA, which we've not done since the beginning of July, is not a bad thing. People talking about the double tops, it's on most of them right now. So yeah, that's there, but it looks all right. It really does. EMA fib levels, there's nothing really that ties in there. So maybe we just need to look at this move, the actual strong move up. But even that, I suppose it's 236. I think for me, I wouldn't worry about the fib levels right now. I think the psychological level of 4,000, the 50 EMA on the daily, and also the local cycled highs in and around that level is where I would be looking for that pullback. And I've talked about that 50 EMA pullback, some 3,400, 3,600. It's now just at 4,000, which is great to see it prolong itself out. Won't bother with Near or Link or Ondo. Solana, Solana, okay, it feels like it's ranging, but it's making higher highs and higher lows on the daily time frame using the 50 EMA as support. You can't really beat it. So, I'd be looking for it to clear 220 on the next move up. And as long as it stays above 175, then we're still in that category. Okay, want to be uber strict, 185. So someone asked me to talk about Crow. And Crow had a hell of a move last week. I think I did post about this in Discord. I might have done it in just the WhatsApp group I was in. But lo and behold, it moved from 15 to effectively 40 cents. And it moved the day the news broke of a $6.42 billion investment by Trump Media and Yorkville Acquisitions. But this is a tale as old as time, isn't it? That news breaks. They've already bought it. Retail rushes in, profit taken, and this is just going to pull back. In my opinion, this is just going to continue to pull back. I'm calling it at some stage it will get back down to that 50 EMA, but I'm going to say around about 20 cents. 50% pullback, not of the move, but from the overall price of the move itself. We're kind of getting close to a 50% pullback. But yeah, it's just a tale as old as time, that. So from a TA point of view, it's quite difficult to really suggest. If you still hold some, you saw this move go up, you didn't take profits there. It's tough. It's on some EMAs right now, but I don't think they hold. I personally don't think they hold. I think we come through the 10, the 20, and we sort of meet ourselves in and around here. So there's potential for it to come through. But just look how fast they formed. Vector candles, 3-day time frame. We know they get taken out. So, sorry, daily time frame. They're going to get taken out. It's my opinion on it. And that's all the real TA I can offer you. Was it an all-time high? No, nowhere near. Thing got to $1 back then. Okay. What were the other ones people asked for? I can't remember. I think Litecoin was one of them. I'll just do Litecoin then. Sorry, I'm just trying to think what the other ones were. Not futures contract. Litecoin. I mean, the Litecoin's quite similar to ones that I didn't bother clicking on, like Near and on a few others, even Bitcoin to some extent. We've had the move up, but we've seen that pullback, and again, what we are now seeing, it's only a couple of weeks old, so it's hard to say that the trend is really reversing. But we're getting close to foot. We've had the higher high here. We're starting to pull back down, first low, higher low, sorry, lower high even, coming back down. But what will be interesting is if we don't keep 105, then even on this full move down, we're starting to make that low. Now, there's definitely vector candles north and south of this, but we are below the 50 EMA. We're same analysis beginning of September, expecting a punch in the nose, high test forming there. I kind of think that we probably do make that move down. Whether it wicks or bodies, I don't know, but 100 to 200 EMA down there, taking some of all these vectors. I think that's a logical conclusion to potentially make with that. What else was there? Let me just see if I can bring Discord up and have a look. Doge. Okay. God, I haven't looked at Doge in a while. That's how long I've not looked at it. Bloody dog just popped up. Sorry if you've seen that more often. I haven't seen that in bloody ages. Okay, so what do we got? I mean, massive time frame. We potentially had this sort of double bottom fall, and we had that move up. It broke the neckline, but not by much. And then we've just come back down into this range, and we're kind of I think there's a big move on the cards here. I'm hoping for upwards. Look, we are just being squeezed with all of these EMAs at the moment, without any vectors, by the way. It's not massive movements in and around. But as we're just getting squeezed, this usually is a precursor to an explosive move. Now, I'm sorry, politician in me, I don't know which way that is going to necessarily go. I totally get the argument of, hey, still technically in the bear market. So, you'd like to favor that move up, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. The only other sort of downside, I suppose, is there are vectors down here which have moved down, could create then a triple bottom and some opportunity for it to go there. But on the lower time frames, I'll try and see if there's anything better I can do on that. 4 hour. I mean, we're just in this range, and I tell you what, this 800 EMA holding us quite nicely. Again, squeezing us though, but we're just in a bit of a range. Is there something here? I don't know. It's a compression of some sort, and that's what I'm talking about, that squeeze. I appreciate you could put a line there as well. That's a bit of a better squeeze, close to the apex. 51.49, there you go. No longer a politician. Potentially the opposite of which way it will go. Almost 50-50. In terms of everything else, just sort of scattering through it. Totally don't want to look at. Interesting that USDT dominance is slightly climbing up again, but double bottom running into resistance. Maybe that's the move. Climbing up a couple of days, that bloody nose for us, and then we get that move back down potentially. The VIX had a move up today. It was at one stage 20%, but it's still within its range of lows. Fine when it's low. Dollar, again, kind of range and being held back. And this long-term trend line just wicked into it. But not really doing anything either way. NASDAQ pulled back to the 50 EMA, but it's kind of just moving sideways. Has been for a couple of months. Selling may go away and all of that shenanigans. And the S&P 500, I mean, it was its all-time high 4 or 5 days ago. Ever so slight pullback, nothing to worry about there. I think we've already talked about the Russell. Again, strong move up since April. Coinbase, it's gapped down. It's sort of stayed down there. There's that big red vector. I don't know what that gap was all about. It must have been an earnings related. Okay, surprise. Yeah, 90 million down. Okay, that's it. But not really managed to recover just yet. Circle's continuing to fall. We're liking that. Long may it continue. Nvidia. Okay, gap down a little bit today, but on the 50 EMA. I just feel Nvidia is just going to continue to climb. There's no TA in that. It's just all it seems to do. Balance here is fine. TauX. Ooh, I tell you. Right on the neckline. Something to bear in mind. Tesla's it kind of did broke out. Kobo, maybe that is the next move. I don't want to talk too much about those. They're just the ones that I have in my pension. I'm not buying or selling them either way. But yeah, I think that's probably it. First day back. Blow the cobwebs away. I will try and do a charting video. I will do a charting video on Friday. I know it's a cuddle on Saturday. But for once, I've actually done my presentation ahead of time. So kind of ready to go on that. Hopefully there's plenty of you coming along to the cuddle. I don't know what the numbers are like. I know it's going to be pretty much Tau and Alpha subnets, etc. heavy. I am not talking about any of that. So hopefully there'll be something of interest for everybody, regardless if you're into Alpha tokens or not. But more importantly, it's always just good to have a bit of a catch up. I'm sadly not staying the night on Saturday, but I will be there till late, 9-10 o'clock. I just got daughter's birthday is party that weekend on the Sunday, so I'm going to get back for that. But I will be there Friday night as well. So for those of you that are going to be there Friday night, just let us know. I'll happily come down and have a chat with anyone in the bar beforehand. That's probably it for me. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I believe it'll be as usual on Thursday as well. So we've got Thursday at 1 o'clock, Friday just after lunchtime, 30-minute sort of chatting video for myself, cuddle on Saturday, and then next week I will be doing my live on, what day should I do it? Probably on the Wednesday. I'll do my live on the Wednesday. It is actually my daughter's birthday on the Tuesday, and we're going out for something to eat. So I'll do it on the Wednesday instead, but you'll probably be bored of listening to my voice by then. Right, as I say, enjoy the rest of your time, guys. And if you've got any questions, hit me up in Discord. Otherwise, I shall see you all on Saturday. Cheers now.